ESPN has a verdict on Carson Beck. At least draft analyst Jordan Reed has chimed in. Never too early to talk about the NFL draft, right? That's at least the philosophy of the major media outlets. But they just broke down a bunch of the top prospects for next year in terms of quarterback. You've got guys like Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck, Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers. You look at this list and you realize, whoa, I would have rather picked from Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jaden Daniels and J.J. McCarthy was in that crop of people, even though I think that a couple of the quarterbacks on this list can be better than J.J. McCarthy. Back to Carson Beck. He's projected to be the number one quarterback in college football this year. Right? Projected Heisman winner, at least the favorite to do that. He is currently the favorite to be the number one pick in next year's NFL draft if it is a quarterback-needy team that is number one. I've seen some interesting mocks. I've seen mocks that have the Panthers taking him. I don't know why they would give up on Bryce Young that early. It just kind of goes to show where some of the ridiculousness is in the national media, but I do want to talk about. They talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of all of the major quarterbacks. So I want to talk about Carson Beck. I want to talk about Quinn Ewers because they're going to be facing Quinn Ewers, and they're going to be facing Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe. So this list is just full of guys that Georgia's playing, and of course has Carson Beck. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about the quarterbacks of the SEC, their strengths and weaknesses according to ESPN draft analyst Jordan Reed. Let's break down what he had to say. You know, one of my favorite things to do is get on here and tell you if I think that what people are talking about is right or wrong. And I usually write about the quarterbacks. My track record's pretty good, other than Josh Rosen. Thought he was going to be good, and he's not. He was good at UCLA. This is I'm going to read real quick where he excels. We'll read it. We'll break it down. Beck threw for 3,941 yards, 24 touchdown passes, and 6 interceptions last season, his first as a starter. Thanks for the information we already knew, Jordan Reed. His 86 QBR ranked 5th in the country. A rhythm passer. He has a veteran-level understanding of how to process and attack coverages. The Georgia offense centers around his decisiveness, and he wastes little time getting the ball out. His average of 2.38 seconds before the throw tied for the nation's quickest release in 2023. I've got something to say about that. Beck also trusts what he sees and remains calm even when smothered in the pocket. He has played from under center and out of the shotgun too, giving him good experience for what he'd be asked to do at the next level. I agree with some of the things that Jordan Reed's talking about. Georgia does run an offense that's more similar to the pros than a lot of other college football offenses that you see. Like the Auburn offenses are typically not anywhere near what a pro team. It's personnel-based and it's coaching scheme-based, but Georgia runs a pro style. They like to have a balanced offense. They like to include the play action a lot. They like to include rollouts. I tell you what, Georgia loves play action rollouts, and that was not just with Stetson Bennett. His average of 2.38 seconds before the throw is tied for the nation's quickest release in 2023. So this has been a discussed thing, not necessarily in terms of Georgia, but quarterbacks are throwing faster, and defenses are getting faster and better, and quarterbacks have to get the ball out quicker. Coaches are getting fancier with their blitzes. Georgia does like to get the ball out quick. Why would you? I just think it's interesting because I read a little bit further, and they talk about how he benefits from a quick throw offense, and quick throw offenses can be very successful when you are getting the ball to Brock Bowers, when you're getting the ball to Ladd McConkey, when you're getting the ball to Trevor Etienne, which is a guy that he will be getting the football to this season. So I don't see how that's something that would be bad. I will go ahead and read the weaknesses here in a second. But what is Carson really good at? He's good at reading a defense. You can literally watch him with his eyes. I don't think that you can notice it with every quarterback, them looking through, making their decisions, making their reads. He's got zip. His release is very fast. He has good touch. There are things Carson needs to work on. I'll go ahead and say the things I think he needs to work on before I even read what this guy said. I think Carson could be better at throwing on the run. It's a very hard thing to do. If you've ever tried to throw a football while you're running, It's hard. Caleb Williams makes it look easy. Patrick Mahomes, the Aaron Rodgers, they make it look easy. It's a very hard thing to do, and Carson Beck is not very great at it compared to maybe it's not fair to compare him to those guys, but I've just noticed he's not super accurate when he's throwing on the run. Now, I don't have numbers. I just know what I've seen. Another thing he needs to get better at is accuracy on the deep ball. Surprised at how inaccurate he was on that this past year. They didn't really hit many. They hit, 2 or 3 the whole season? And one of them was short. And Lam McConkey made a great adjustment to the football. I think that he took too many risks, and he got bailed out a few times, throwing into tight coverage. And Stetson Bennett was very guilty of that in 2022. He cut down on that a lot. Maybe we will see the same thing with Carson Beck this coming season. Let's go ahead and read what they have for the weaknesses. Beck isn't the kind of quarterback who will consistently make plays outside the framework of the offense. Kind of along the lines of what I'm saying, but he has enough mobility to get himself out of harm's way in the pocket, but creating extra opportunities will always be a challenge. And while Beck has a good arm, inconsistent footwork and finishes on throws have led to erratic ball placement in short to intermediate areas. Some of his passes lose velocity as they arrive to the target. Wow. He has been a beneficiary of quick throw offense like the part I read ahead to. Now entering his second season as a starter, Beck might have more opportunities to execute deeper concepts. I know Greg McElroy talked about this a little bit recently on his podcast. Georgia held Carson back at first, especially. They held him back offensively, not wanting him to do too much, not trying to throw too much at him when he's starting for the first time in a long time, and he's in a position that just not a lot of people in college football find themselves in, waiting, and then finally getting a turn and, building up confidence in an offense and finally getting your turn for that. So it's a difficult thing that Carson had to do. There's obviously room for improvement. I don't think that it's something to be taken lightly that so many people believe that he is going to be the best quarterback in college football this year. He benefits from a lot of things. He benefits from having a very, very good offensive line. He benefits from having good coaching and a scheme around him. He's more talented than Stetson Bennett in terms of arm talent. Maybe up there. I don't know. That's hard to measure. And we'll probably won't really be able to know until we see another year, Carson. But he's got an NFL arm. He just needs to do it a little more consistently. Here's the other thing. Not a lot of quarterbacks end up with a 72% completion percentage. And part of that is beneficiary of the quick throw offense, like that guy was saying. But let's move on. Quinn Ewers is a guy that they're going to have to face. 6'2", 195. A little bit on the lighter side than I thought. Where he excels, I don't even have to read this. The dude throws a ridiculous deep ball. I don't know how many people that I've seen get that much air and distance at the same time. He's got ridiculous arm strength. I think that he lacks a little bit of touch, even though he also lacks a little bit of zip. I think he's a more inconsistent thrower than Carson, but there's going to be some plays in Austin against Georgia where you're going to be like, whoa, he just got the ball over the top to Isaiah Bonds or whoever it is that they have on a streak and Georgia's corner beat. He's the kind of quarterback that can make that throw. But I've seen him just throw a lot of just terrible passes within 15 yards, more than Carson. Let's move on to Jackson Dart, 6'2", 220. I'm going to read a little bit of this, where he excels. Because he did not excel against Georgia. He can get the ball out quickly with loose, explosive throwing motion and drive it with ease, allowing him to take advantage of voids in a defense. Dart, who took over as the Rebel signal caller in 2022 after transferring from USC, broke out as a junior, blah, 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 his numbers. He's also mobile. He ran for 8 scores. This is a terrible analysis. Where he needs work. The challenge in evaluating Dart is figuring out how he'll handle pro-style reads. Ole Miss's offense doesn't include many multi-step progressions. It's true. Lane Kiffin's offense instead relies primarily on schemed isolation routes. Dart was inconsistent throwing between the hashes, completing only 59% of his passes, so he needs to show more growth. Look, Georgia destroyed Jackson Dart in Ole Miss last year. They just need to do it again. I don't think that he has the high-end talent that Quinn Ewers does to make up for it and beat you. Jalen Milroe, do we need to talk about him? He needs to become more accurate as a thrower. If he does that, he will be probably the best quarterback in college football. I don't think that that's crazy. If he becomes more accurate and a better decision maker, he's the best quarterback in college football because he runs like a running back and he can launch the football. And Georgia already knows what the problem is with him. You got to get to him before he has an opportunity to make plays and let the wide receivers break out and get open. That's their issue there. I'm not a big fan of this article. I'm not. But I think the evaluation on Carson Beck was fair. I think his evaluation on Carson Beck out of all the guys that I just looked at was the most accurate as well. Thanks for watching.